if it goes. Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of the Liberty First Foundation Roundtable. I am Mike Marshall, co-founder of the Liberty First Foundation. With me is Michael Vasquez, Dragon of New York.
Political dragon.
He used to be Dragon of the Southern Tier, political dragon, whatever you want to call him, but he is now in the Bronx. I did get that right?
Yep. That's our current offices.
And he's always been a thorn in politicians' sides, which is actually a good thing, because we need to hold them accountable. I do not know if Frank will be with us tonight or not. He is currently at the NRA annual meeting with our good friends from 5150 Rifles. We do hope that he is able to join us at some point during the night and give us an update on how everything's going there. Michael.
Yeah.
As usual, we are not left with a shortage of things to talk about this week.
Well, that's for sure.
So,
sorry, folks. As I send a message to Dal, check your Twitter inbox. I'm also looking at news, literally right up until about 5 minutes before we went live. I was still getting information for the show tonight and also for Sunday. So if I seem a little off, it's because I'm still sifting through some of the news that we'll be talking about tonight.
Well, one of the first things I want to go over, we touched on it a little bit last week. But because of our guests and so forth, we didn't go into it a whole lot. And that is the indefinite suspension of Trump's trial on the classified documents case.
Yeah, they tried to kill the classified documents because it's a problem. Because if you're going after Trump, you have to go after Obama, who's also been revealed to have done the same thing, and Biden, and also there was someone else besides him, but definitely Biden is also automatically in violation of the very same terms and rules and regulations. So they're shooting themselves in the foot. You go after Trump, you take everyone else with him. They don't want to do that, so they'd rather let the story go because it was a weak story. No one cared. Dal, where did you go?
He is here and he disappeared.
Yeah.
So basically, that case is not going to go anywhere. It's indefinitely suspended. I don't expect it to go any further. Honestly, at least not before the election. The other case.
Oh, it will definitely come. They will continue.
They'll continue to try to say how guilty he is.
Oh, yeah. All of the cases that he has.
And how the judge is so corrupt for suspending it and so forth. They will still use that in their streams and so forth. And that was literally what they wanted anyway. They wanted an indictment so that they could use it as political ammunition for the election.
That's all they're doing against Trump. All of these charges, and there will be more charges, and there will be more trials, even after Trump, according to all polling, is going to win. Mm-hmm. And Democrats are terrified of that.
And it's not going to be a small win either.
Well, depends.
All polling data shows that he is going to take a lot of states that are predominantly Democrat states.
Depends. That depends. But according to Real Clear Politics, the average of the lead for Donald Trump is about 2 points on the popular vote. According to every single poll going back 2 years, Trump has a basically 2-point lead. Now, how that translates state by state, you're going to see more states, many of the there's basically seven swing states, and current polling says Trump wins 5 out of 7.
At least 5.
At least 5.
Okay. So, and I've seen some polls and stuff saying that he wins all of them.
There is a fear that that could happen amongst the Democrats, but no matter how you look at it, Biden is going to lose.
And there's also been some things running around that there are a few predominantly Democrat states. Mind you, they're more purple than they are blue, but they do tend to be predominantly Democrat that are going to flip to Trump as well. And those are the things that are scaring them. That's another reason for them literally changing the rules and changing the law so that they could do the E. Carroll, whatever her name is,
Jean
trial.
Carroll?
Yeah.
E. Jean Carroll. Or Jean E. No, it's E. Jean Carroll. Yeah.
E. Jean Carroll. So that they could retry that. They are doing the Stormy Daniels case, even though that has literally been blowing up in their face a lot of places, but the liberal pundits are trying to say that the prosecution's winning. But
they can say that
based
because
on
there's no
testimony-
cameras.
Yeah, well, based on what was released today from a few different news sources, including CNN, Owen's testimony is not very good, because when he is directly asked about the quote-unquote phone call informing Trump that the payment was made to Stormy Daniels, it was showing that it was a 2-minute phone call and that it was actually in reference, according to Trump's bodyguard at the time, which is a member of Secret Service. Or no, I take it back. He wasn't president yet. So his lead bodyguard, according to testimony from him, that was about harassing phone calls that he is getting from a 14-year-old. And they also submitted into evidence several pages of text messages to Cohen's phone from this individual that occurred around that same time period. And the question is how, and Cohen did admit to discussing that, but he also said that he told Trump that the payment was made on top of it. And the defense is asking, well, how could you do that in 2 minutes, discuss with the head security guy, have the phone transferred to Trump, and tell Trump that the payment was made, all within 2 minutes? And the phone records show that the call only lasted 2 minutes. So
There's no way.
Cohen pretty much stumbled around. Well, I think that's accurate.
Yeah, but this isn't a serious case. It's not a serious trial. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be a distraction. It's meant to just have negative publicity against Trump. It's a campaign tactic. It's not an election issue, and it never was. So, which is one of the reasons why I don't care. I don't care about Stormy Daniels. I don't care about the money, the hush money. No different than the hush money that Clinton paid out.
No, it's not. Okay, and it never should have came to trial. It never should. Charges should have never been brought. But they are literally trying to throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at Trump, trying to basically make him look bad. And the only thing they're managing to do is actually increase his strength in polling and so forth.
Well, it's kind of funny, they want you to believe, the mainstream media is saying how great Joe Biden is and how wonderful, how beloved he is. And yet, with Trump having 90 plus charges, he's going to be in trials he wins the presidency. He's going to be there for 4 years. He's going to be in trials and getting charges for 4 years in a row. And he's still winning 5 out of 7 of the swing states. He is still beating Biden in national polling for 2 years, about 90% of all polls taken, even from the left. So there's no two ways about that.
No, there isn't. Okay.
And why is my camera acting up? Go ahead.
I mean, they are literally grasping at straws, and literally everything they have tried has been basically attacks on Trump. They attacked the Roe v. Wade decision. They attacked Trump's position on immigration, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the thing is, very things they are attacking are things that are actually giving Trump more support. Is that what you're seeing, Dow?
I'm seeing that, and actually something that's related. I really think that they're pushing for some sort of conviction. The scuttlebutt right now on social media is that, given the result of the Dexter Taylor trial, where they put him away for 10 years, they're hoping that the jury will actually do their job for them, give them a conviction that they can slap an ankle bracelet on them at the very least. And the redemption arc, so to speak, is that come election day, when they count the votes, and if Trump wins, he can make this glorious exit from Mar-a-Lago, strike off the ankle bracelet, and be like, "I'm back, baby." That's the hope. But yeah, it's distracting from all these other things that they're doing, like taking away freedoms from the regular people.
But literally, all their cases have been blowing up in their faces.
That's true, but it doesn't seem to matter.
Every case is blowing up in their face.
Well, no one cares. No one cares because it's not important.
Okay.
It never was important.
And then Biden's trying to recover on inflation by trying to claim that inflation during Trump's last year was 9%. And
which is a lie.
Yeah, everybody, literally, both right and left-wing media have pointed out that this is a lie, that inflation was only 1.4%, and that it didn't get to 9% until Biden had been in office for 18 months.
Well, again, they need to make it look, and even if you went with that, even if you went with 9%, Joe Biden has doubled the inflation. We're at, depending on the exact source you're looking at, somewhere between 18 and 24%. So even if that were the case, which it is factually not, then you're looking at double. He doubled inflation.
Well, right now, according to the government websites, inflation at its highest was 9.5%.
No, depends on.
We know this is not true inflation, but we're going because these are saying that's where the 1.4% came from.
Well, let me clarify, because something that a lot of people don't realize is the way that they count these numbers. Now, the way they're counting it for Biden is they're counting the month-by-month numbers, not the aggregate, not the total change over time. He's going month by month.
Not
so
year
on
to year.
any given month, inflation may be up 0.3%, 1%, something like that. And that's where he's getting his number. And he's counting versus the peak, which was August of 2022. And that's why he keeps saying, well, inflation is down versus August 2022, when we entered into a recession.
And it's still 1.3% higher than what the Feds wanted at, which is 2%. Well, they want inflation at 2% or a little lower.
Right. And that's the monthly number. So when I say 18 to 24, I'm counting from February 2021 to today.
Right.
That aggregate, that if you look at inflation, the total is an increase of between 18 and 24%, depending on the source that you want to use. But he's not going to count it that way.
And going off the monthly numbers, right now, inflation, like I said, is 3.3%. The Fed wants that monthly number at 2 or slightly below. Okay. And Biden's trying to say inflation's down. No, inflation is above. That's why our interest rates are continuing to go up on literally everything. Okay, new car loans, inflation's up. New housing loans, inflation's up. New housing costs are literally doubled what they were prior to this administration. Okay, and they're trying to blame this all on Republicans and everything, and it's not. Okay, if you want to try to blame corporate greed for inflation, that doesn't account for the increase in the raises in housing costs.
Yeah, let's stop with that for a second, because for the people who say, "Well, it's all about corporate greed. It's about the greedy corporation." These corporations have been around for decades, if not centuries. They've never been greedy before. They only became greedy since Donald Trump became president. So the last 50, 100 years, because according to
No, they only became greedy after Trump got
out of office. Yeah. So again, that's even worse. It makes no sense. Even by the left standards, it makes no sense because it's not true. According to the left, and we've been hearing them say that corporations are evil, they don't pay enough in taxes, that they're greedy. You can go back decades upon decades saying that. So why is now any different than the last 50, 100 years? According to the left, there is no difference. They're just as greedy today, according to the left, as they were 5 decades ago. So it's not the fault of, you can't even say it's because corporations are greedy. They've always been greedy, according to the left. What's the difference?
Because, Michael, didn't you know they're posting record profits?
They've posted record profits before. This, again, is not new. That isn't the stock market.
But I want you to understand. I want people to understand this. Okay. Inflation causes everything to cost more. If everything costs more, then that means that corporations are going to be making more money, correct?
Yeah, as long as there's depreciation too. I mean, you have to figure that inflation isn't the only thing acting on our money right now. It's actually a depreciation in the buying power of the dollar.
Well, yeah, the buying power of the dollar is going down, which is causing, okay, but prices are going up. Okay,
right.
So it only makes it logical that corporations would have record profits if you're only looking at dollars.
Right.
They're not looking at percentages.
No, because it takes more dollars. Physically, it takes more dollars to buy something when there's high inflation because your money is worthless.
Right. And that's where they're getting this. They're making record-breaking profit.
So were the companies in Weimar, Germany, when you had to take, a bakery to get a loaf of bread, you had to take a wagon load of, German Weimar Deutschmarks.
Yeah. And
I'm sure they were making record profits too, physically, but in terms of buying power, it was worthless. It was like Venezuelan money, toilet paper.
Well, and here's the other thing along with this. So you're going to say a handful of these mega corporations are literally driving inflation everywhere, in every sector of the economy.
Government regulation does that better than the corporations would ever do
it. Government regulation is the only way you can do it.
Yeah.
Have inflation across every sector.
By the way, folks, if you're wondering what I was just doing, I just want to interject something real quick. I was just registering for Donald Trump's going to be in the South Bronx.
Really? Cool.
May 23rd. And I just registered to try and be able to be at that event. And hopefully, if I am able to go, I will then be able to cover it with everyone. So that's why I've been looking down, and possibly why my computer is acting up at the moment. I don't know what's going on with the camera, but that's what's going on there, in case you were wondering. So I may be covering Donald Trump on the 23rd, and I may be in DC on the 24th.
Is the 23rd a Friday?
I believe so. Yes. No, that's a Thursday.
Darn it, I'm at work.
Yeah.
So,
Mind you, I sent them the message. I haven't been confirmed back yet, but this would be maybe the third or fourth time if I get to do it. And I hope to cover Trump in DC at the Libertarian Convention. So this is somewhere around 4 or 5 times covering Donald Trump live.
yeah, but this will be the 23rd and 24th, which is Thursday and a Friday, in a week, literally.
Yeah, I'll be at work. Darn it. Grace and I were kind of hoping to catch, if he ever came to New York, that we were going to try and catch him in person.
So, and as usual, the pro-Palestine people are trying to claim all this stuff about how Israel is so evil. Yet Israel literally found in the very place that they did not, where they were where Biden was literally telling them not to go, 3 bodies of
Hamas
the bodies of 3 of the hostages.
Oh. Oh,
it's worse than people think.
It is in pieces.
And there will be more bodies found.
No. Let me clarify that, Mike. It's not that they're going to find more bodies. It's that Hamas has killed more hostages.
Yeah.
We know that number. We believe, and international news media have been soft confirming that there will be at least 40 hostages that are dead, which may or may not include the 3 that were just found today. So we may be looking at 43 in the next round, if not higher. These are people that, and to be very clear about it, to let people understand, this isn't people Israel killed. See, when there were 3 hostages that were killed by Israel by accident, or even if you want to say on purpose, and Hamas instantly told the world about it, gave us all of the evidence, and Israel got the backlash from the rest of the world instantly. This isn't the case. These 40, possibly 43 hostages that we are now finding that are dead, that are part of the negotiations for the ceasefire, these are all people killed by Hamas, which is why Hamas doesn't want to talk about them, doesn't want to confirm whether the hostages are alive or dead, because it isn't. There is no evidence to point to Israel. Israel didn't do this. Just like these 3 we found today, they were believed to have been killed on or about October 7th. Their bodies were taken so that Hamas could claim them as living hostages to improve its negotiations with Israel and to get more support from the rest of the world. And they were always dead. They were always dead. Hamas lied. They killed them at the concert and took the dead bodies to make people think there was a false hope that they would be alive. It's part of their negotiation tactics. It's part of them being terrorists. This is how they increase the amount of terror. You think your loved one is alive when they know they are dead. And they're going to use that, and they're going to try and blame it on Israel, knowing all the way through for 7 months, knowing, yeah, they're already dead. They've always been dead. And the reason why Israel Hamas doesn't want to admit any of this is they know they want a clause, the ceasefire, to absolve them of any retribution from any other country. So the 17 Britons that were taken hostage, the 22 Americans that were taken hostage, the over 124, if not 154 individuals that are held hostage right now. These are some 50 countries that are involved in this. They want a ceasefire that says you cannot retaliate even if your people are dead, even if it's proven, as we just saw, that Hamas killed these people while they were hostages or as they were being taken hostage. They want to be absolved. They're kind of like the kids over at the colleges protesting. They don't want any kind of consequence for what they do. You know, they destroy buildings, they just break the law. They want no consequence to follow them. Same thing with Hamas. No consequence for killing people. This is the levels of evil we are talking about that people like the Democratic Socialists of America, the colleges across America, this is what they're supporting. This is the kind of evil that they are promoting. And it's really sad that it seems my predictions are correct, that every American is probably dead. Many of the Britons are dead. That at least 40, and I believe, well above 50 of the hostages are dead, killed by Hamas, and we'll never get them back alive.
No.
And people should actually understand something else about it. It's not just how evil they are. It's also a tactical decision. Because think of it, you have multiple people as hostages that you can use for negotiations, but they have to feed them. They have to give them resources that they're wanting to reserve for their fighting people only. So when you go to negotiate with somebody like that and you're asking for proof of life and there's no proof of life to give, but they just give this nebulous answer like, oh, no, they're fine. They're still here. We still have them as hostages. The likelihood is that they're already dead after this long because they would have to feed them for 7 months.
Right.
They're not going to do that. The resources are too valuable for their fighting men. So, and that goes for the Palestinian people as well. Your civilians are at the mercy of Hamas because Hamas will be the first ones to gather resources, hoard them, and if you want to eat that day, you either support Hamas or you starve. So the Palestinian people have basically allowed themselves to become enslaved to Hamas because they're not going. The Hamas has a stranglehold on those resources.
Well, they do. Okay, and you're exactly right. Okay, it is you either support Hamas or you die. In Gaza, there is no other way about it.
Well, no, I don't agree with that.
Will kill you.
I don't agree with that. Look, the people of Palestine elected a terrorist organization that they knew was a terrorist organization, who's by their charter and their organization, and even at the time, their ascendancy was all about terrorism. They replaced the PLO, and they came in on a platform of terrorism, of genocide. They knew that when they elected them. They've kept them in. And if all the people in Gaza all the Palestinians were to speak up, Hamas can't kill everyone. They can't. If they were to speak up and say, no, we don't want Hamas anymore, Hamas would be diminished. They would be out of the government. They could do that. The excuse is, well, we're afraid. If it's the people of Palestine, they could do it. They don't want to.
Right.
They don't want to. They want to have Hamas there. They want terrorists to run their government.
And that's why they portray this as the repercussions of what Israel's doing.
Why is it when I'm trying to share something, it didn't come up?
I don't know.
That's AI.
Mm-hmm.
Look at them. It's the same face on every kid.
Right.
Well, if you look on the screen and you look at the help one, they wouldn't have something in English that says help. No. That doesn't even say help. The letters are
And
wrong.
look the way the hands are right here
1, 2,
Well,
on the little
3.
girl.
You got these two
Four.
hands, right? Two
Yeah.
sets of
They
hands.
have no body to them.
Yeah. This kid's proportion. I can't show you in the screen, but the kid on the far right. Yep, him. Look at his proportions, his head to his body. Look at the angle. So, I mean, if you were looking straight down, maybe he would have those proportions, or he would have to be a dwarf.
Yeah.
He's neither. Same thing with the kid right next to him. Look at the similarity of each and every one of the faces, especially as you go further into the background.
Mhm.
That's not the way. If you take a picture,
And
look at the kid.
look at the
1, 2,
fingers.
3.
On this little girl in the very front. Okay, AI cannot do hands. It has an extremely hard time doing hands.
Yeah, but it has a lot of problems. I mean, you've got the girl in the red scarf has 2 heads. You go straight across, and the kid with his mouth open, the small kid with his head, one, he's out of proportion. But look at that. He looks like a zombie.
Mhm.
This is an AI image. It's not real. There
No,
are many, many telltale details on that. That's a fake image meant to get your feelings. And there's the image I was going to bring up before. Don't know why it didn't come up. And this is everything's going wrong with my cameras today. Some disappearing and everything. Okay. There we go. So this is the 3 people who were killed by Hamas, which is completely evil. And I believe it is, here it is, 360 people were killed. 125 of them remain unaccounted for. Actually, the number is higher. This is the BBC counting the numbers down. It's actually closer to 140.
Yeah.
It's not clear how many of those who are unaccounted for are still alive. And all Hamas has to say is, we'll give you the bodies if you make peace and don't hold anything against them. This is critical. And you always hear that Gaza, you always hear that there's 35,000 Palestinians were killed. You know who says that? You know where that number comes from? Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from the terrorists who lie on a regular basis. From Hamas, the people who lied and said that the hostages were alive when they've been dead, some of them dead 7 months. These liars, Hamas, are telling you it's 35,000. You know what they don't count in there? How many of those 35,000 Palestinians were members of Hamas? They were part of the military fighting the IDF, fighting Israel, that were killed. We know the number, depending on which international source you want to go to, is somewhere between 6 and 13,000. Roughly half the people that Hamas is claiming were killed as civilians were actually army. They were military that were killed in military fighting. So this is all bull. But the important thing to understand is that Hamas has been playing you for a fool, using your emotions against you. And these 3 people are just the tip of the iceberg. There are dozens upon dozens, including probably every single American, quite possibly also every single Briton, are dead.
Yeah.
And we can't do anything about this because Biden is weak.
Mm-hmm.
It's upsetting.
Yeah, the only thing Biden's really done is, because of Israel going into Rafah or however you pronounce
Rafah.
it, he paused weapons going to Israel. Okay, which Congress has, as of today, basically overruled, and will be still sending them weapons.
He's playing to his base.
Yeah.
Biden is playing to his base, which are the extremist progressives, the so-called Democrats of Dearborn, Michigan.
Let's call them accurately the Skittleheads.
What?
Skittleheads.
The Skittleheads.
What?
Taste the rainbow.
Okay.
They've got Skittle hair.
Okay, what?
Gays for Gaza, the
They've all got rainbow hair. So the easiest way to describe them is skittleheads.
Okay, this is new. I haven't heard that before.
I get it.
So,
I get the joke.
I mean,
Uh,
if you go to skittleheads for answers, you're going to get skittle-based solutions.
And rainbow flags.
Yeah.
okay. Well, anyone if you believe in the rainbow and you support Hamas, you're an idiot because they'll kill you. They'll throw you off of a building if they don't set you on fire. That's their policy. That's their policy on LGB and everyone else. If you're on the spectrum, they kill you. That's their answer.
Oh, but it doesn't matter,
injustice.
Mike. It doesn't matter because they're not over there. So they're not the ones getting shot at. They're just wanting to make sure that the people stay alive and the innocents don't get hurt.
Getting stoned and burned.
No, they just want to make sure they're in power.
There was a response video from someone like that on Twitter that was making the rounds. And that was their answer, was like, I don't care. I want to support Gaza because I don't want to see innocent people die. I don't care that I'm gay and they hate me.
No, they don't hate. They want to kill the gays. That's what Hamas, they've said that. They've done it. It's not even like, ooh, they've done it. It is a clear expression of their genocidal terroristic tendencies.
But that's how you know it's not sincere. Like the support that they're gathering in the West here is not sincere because the only premise that they have is some nebulous, tenuous grip on the idea that they're somehow saving innocents when really those very innocents, and I say that in loose air quotes, would be the same ones that would throw them off a building or stone them to death.
Wait a minute. Who said this is about innocence? This is nothing about the protests at any of the college campuses, whether it's Harvard or Binghamton University, Columbia or Cornell University or UCLA. None of them are about innocent people because you don't hear those students protesting about the 40,000 Americans and the poor in Haiti. 700 miles away, a 3-hour flight from America. You don't hear them protesting or trying to donate to get food and aid to those people in that war-torn nation. You don't hear them talking about Darfur, where there is an actual genocide that is happening that is affecting 2 million individuals with over 200,000 people that are refugees, where we have tens of thousands of children that are actively being killed again. This is in Darfur, Sudan, where 16,000 Americans were thrown under a bus by the Biden administration a year ago, actually just over a year ago to the day. We know this for a fact, and that's because ISIS got into Sudan to start a civil war after they were released by Joe Biden in 2021. None of that. There are literal genocides happening in the world. There is literal slavery happening in the world, called otherwise human trafficking. There are absolutely people who are desperately in need at this moment, hundreds, just a couple hundred miles away from the American coast. And those college students don't give a damn about any of those children or any of those lives. It's not about need. It's not about saving anyone. This is about politics. That's it. Pure and simple. This is about supporting socialism. The reason why, and I'll make it brief, is real simple. Hamas is small. Israel, relative to Hamas, is big. And they support the small political organization because progressives are a small sliver of the population of the United States. And they justify themselves and say, we're small, and because we're small, we need to have more power. And that's why they support small organizations around the world, even if they are terrorists, even if they're homicidal, genocidal maniacs, because if they say, no, that small group is a homicidal, genocidal maniac, and they don't deserve more power, you could say, well, small groups don't need more power than their size. Therefore, the Democratic Socialists do not get more power in America. This is about self-preservation of their politics. And anyone who says it's about saving innocents is a liar trying to make themselves sleep well at night. You're a liar or you're dumb, one or the other.
No, they're NIMBYist hypocrites is what they are. Like, as long as it's not in their own backyard, they're willing to support any cause that doesn't directly affect them. There's no consequences for it.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's automatic. If the right supports it, the left has to be against it.
Yeah.
Automatic. Yeah. If the right supports it, the left has to be against it. The right supports Israel, so the left's got to support Gaza. And
but I'm telling you, it's about supporting. But their answer is, it's because Hamas, the terrorists, are small, and people who are small don't have power, and therefore they deserve more power. That's their answer. If you listen to them on the college campuses, this is what they are telling students.
That is, as long as you're not Jewish, as long as you're not Asian, or any of these other ethnic groups that have actually been able to be successful.
Well, no,
the things that have been stacked against them.
Yeah, they don't care about any of that. All they want is they're using them as the example. They're the surrogate for the socialists themselves. And that's the ultimate truth. When you listen to what they are saying on the college campuses, this is their messaging. They are small and they deserve more power. And everyone who's small like them deserves more power. That's
that is, unless it's an election.
What do you mean?
Well, they want to do away with the electoral college. They want so that only big cities are able to decide who is president.
Well, yeah. They want the democratically held cities.
Okay, so power. So unless it's an election, they only think that the small people should have power, and then in an election, the big cities should be the ones that control everything.
Oh, I guarantee you, if they get more power, they will change the definition of racism and prejudice and take out the added in definition of power, the component
and
of
that's
power.
Literally why the Democrats are so afraid of the bill that was just passed in the House that puts a citizenship question on the U.S. Census.
It's been on the census before.
Oh, it has. Okay. And the thing is this will determine accurately the number of seats that a state gets in the House. It will accurately determine the number of electoral votes a state has, because they can actually remove non-citizens from those numbers. Those non-citizens will still count as far as federal funding going into states, but as far as representative numbers in Congress and during presidential elections, they will not count.
Well, it's the reason why in 2021, Joe Biden changed the census to include illegal aliens, which is why New York State only lost one member of Congress, why California,
when they're supposed to lose 3.
Yeah, we were supposed to lose 3. We lost 1 because they started counting illegal aliens. Same thing in California, in Illinois.
I think California was slated to lose 4.
Yes, but up until they counted illegal aliens, and that then put them over the limit and reduced their loss. Again, that was about power. These are the games that are being played, and they assume that Americans have a memory like a goldfish, which is why they can get away with it.
Most Americans do.
Well, it's kind of like what we saw with the debates. You heard about this, right? That Joe Biden put out a challenge against Donald Trump for the 2024 presidential debates. And he offered 2 debates one in the summer and one only after the voting started taking place in the third quarter of this year, before the election. So he only wants 2 debates. And the media this week was jumping up and down, cheering, laughing, happy. Oh my God, Joe Biden said he'll have 2 debates. This is so wonderful. How gracious of him. This is going to be so important. They also forgot to tell the American people that on April 2nd, Donald Trump offered 7 debates with Joe Biden, with the majority of them taking place over the summer before a single vote gets cast in early voting, so that Americans know what they're voting for. He offered 7 anytime, any place. That was on May 2nd and April 2nd. And then April 12th, 5 of the major news media organizations came together and put a petition in front of the Biden administration, begging Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to accept at least some of the debates offered by Trump, that they must agree to do some debates, because up until the 10 days between the 2nd and the 12th of April, it would look like Joe Biden would not do any debates, and they begged him to change his mind. And now he comes out and says, I'll do 2. And they're like, oh my God, look, no one's ever suggested that there should be a debate. No one has come up and told the American people that they want to debate. Only Joe Biden, and he's so gung-ho. Aren't you lucky? Don't you want to vote for Joe Biden because he's willing to do 2 debates, and no one else would ever offer anything other than the 7 that was offered a month earlier by Trump, other than the news media forcing Biden to actually accept any debates whatsoever. Yeah, some of us aren't goldfish, and we actually pay attention to the news. It's so infuriating.
Yeah.
Well, they only offered 2 more debates because that's all the Adderall they have left. They can't get any more until after the debates are over.
Well, the reason why it's 2 debates, so that they can push everything all together, so nothing is going to stand out.
Yeah.
Biden has nothing to point to as a success. Nothing. There is no policy that has actually worked. No promise that has actually been a benefit to the American people. None. He can't point to anything domestically or internationally. So rather than have debates that would focus on domestic issues or foreign policy, which is absolutely important. That's Hamas. That's the hostages. That's the Ukraine war. That's the tensions with China. The fact that China is now pushing us around the United States, as well as our allies in Japan and the Philippines and in South Korea. Rather than have to deal with all of those issues, he's going to put it all together. He'll get maybe 1 question in 1 debate, and then it'll be gone. And then you can forget. And then he can say that the economy is fantastic. You just don't understand that your bills aren't that big, and that you're doing better today than you were 4 years ago. You just don't understand. And he's going to tell you about how much you don't understand because you don't have a debate to point to and say, but you're wrong.
Did you see the CNN interview that Biden had where the reporter asked the question about the economy?
And yeah, he didn't like that.
Basically, Biden called CNN a Trump-supporting news network.
Yeah. He was expecting a softball interview, and all of a sudden he gets smacked in the head with a with a direct fastball.
He tries to call up this poll out of Michigan where supposedly 65% of Michiganers think that they're doing better or better financially
under Trump rather than Biden.
No, that they are doing better financially now, but the rest of the nation is in trouble, economic trouble.
Which I don't know how that's possible. I mean, Michigan is as depressed of a state as the rest of us.
No, it depends on who are you asking. in Michigan? Are you
Mhm.
going to Dearborn, Michigan, where Biden just built a pier for $320 million, where they have a large number of refugees who are getting supplemental income from Democrats for entering the United States, many of them without any vetting? Who are you asking that question of? Are you talking about the guy who is part of the 3.9 unemployed, or those who are not, the 100 million people who are not counted as part of the unemployed? Who are you asking the question to?
Right.
Oh, so they don't want to tell you that part, because that's very important.
Okay.
Or
And
they're taking it in Traverse City, Michigan, where a lot of
the thing
leftists are.
is, like I said,
Mhm.
they points to this one abstract poll somewhere in Michigan that we know absolutely zero details about, when CNN's pulling from this nationwide poll where she's literally citing this percentage of Americans think they're doing worse. This percentage of Americans think their buying power is less. These are the numbers. And Biden comes back with this, like I said, this abstract poll that nobody knows about coming out of Michigan.
Okay, so
Some of the stuff that he references, I guarantee, is probably made up or fabricated by his staff.
Oh, I guarantee it is, because he has been caught literally in so many lies.
Okay, so this is for people who don't know. Real Clear Politics is a independent, neutral website. All they do is they aggregate, they collect all of the data from all of the credible sources, news sources in America, and they provide the data, the average number. So looking at the direction of the country, and you can see this is from The Economist, Rasmussen, USA Today, Harvard Harris, Reuters, New York Times. They're going with everyone's answer. And looking at everyone's answer, 65.6% of the nation, 66%, 2/3, do not think America is headed into the right direction under the Biden-Harris administration. And if we look at this, and looking at this chart, this goes back to 2021, when the American people, they gave Joe Biden a chance. They gave him a chance, and we were almost, they thought, well, maybe we could be going in the right direction with Joe Biden. They gave him a chance for his policies, and then it was in May when we first started hearing about the impact of no longer being energy independent. We started to see he doubled the number of troops in Syria. He increased the cost of what was insulin and many of the healthcare drugs from the from the Trump administration. And we just started to hear about the potential of having to leave Iraq ahead of time, just rushing out of Afghanistan in a rush. We started to hear about all of that. And that's when the American people said, no, this isn't going right. None of those promises, none of those things were what we were promised. And it has never gotten better since.
No,
That's just a fact.
no, it's that number that thinks we're going in the wrong direction is trending up.
It is. And it has been since May of 2021. Biden knows this. His staff know this. They're just lying to you. This isn't like secret numbers.
No, the irony is that a lot of the stuff that he reversed from the Trump administration, like the insulin prices and the caps with Medicaid and so on, they were negated by Biden, only to turn around and then have him boast about lowering the price again for optics.
And then, well,
I guess we're lucky that he didn't, that Biden didn't strike down the right to try.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people would be bereft of any kind of hope for treatment if they had the right to try denied to them?
Well, we started off talking about Biden's economic numbers and the 3.3% inflation. Okay.
Oh,
What we didn't get into on that is that number is actually starting to trend upwards. It's no longer going down.
No, it was like a trough.
well, nothing is, even in a recession, there are levels of what happened is we peaked, came down, and plateaued, because the very worst of it, a lot of the initial peak is fear. How bad
Yeah.
will it be? And this is August of 2022. How bad will the war, Ukraine versus Russia, how bad will that be in terms of energy? How bad is it going to be in terms of a food shortage? We knew there was going to be a global food crisis, which there is and has been and will continue in 2025. That is a fact. 30% less food in the world than in 2019. That's happening. We know that the cost of energy increased because of the Ukraine-Russia war and the fact that America isn't energy independent anymore. But now that we understand, so that's why in August of 2022, we had the peak because of the fear, and then we saw a decrease to the reality, which is where it plateaued roughly about a year ago. And we've been plateauing at this level because we're seeing the reality, which is what, 40%? Everything you buy in the store on average is
It's
about
about
40%.
40%.
Yeah, about 40% more expensive than it was in 2019. That's a fact that every American is going through. All of your bills are up at least 12%, if not more, every bill that you have. So that's the reality. And now we're seeing the continuing effort, the Inflation Reduction Act. We're starting to see the impact of those inflationary actions, that outsized spending, like the $320 million for building a pier for Hamas. That's now starting to catch up, which is why we're seeing inflation go up again. Make sense?
Yeah, and isn't that also like the rise for normalization? Like now it's just we plateaued for a bit because people's expectations were meeting reality. Now reality is like, okay, now that this has been normalized, we're starting to catch the tail end of that reality, and we're just going to go along with it now, as opposed to meeting it from before.
No, inflation is factually increasing. It's just our fear. Again, the fear was there would be that the global food crisis would be as much as 50%, not 30%. That the oil would literally be ceased, that Germany would be completely shut off, Poland would be completely shut off, and they would be competing with America for energy since we stopped being energy independent, which would skyrocket the price. It did increase it, but it didn't skyrocket it as much. There were fears of it going to $200 a barrel at one point. Instead, we saw it stabilize around 90 to 95 with spikes to 125. And so that's the range. So that's the difference. But the thing is, in the interim, Biden spent trillions, over $6.8 trillion more per year. And that's inflationary, which then jacks up the price.
Yeah.
Okay. Yahoo Finance is pretty much considered left wing. Okay. And here's what they have to say about the average American's buying power over the last few years.
Your dollar is now worth 30 cents.
Okay. The average American family has lost $7,000 in spending power.
Yep.
Okay.
That's
so
insane.
essentially, if you're making $57,000 a year, you're now making $50,000 a year. Okay, that's what people really don't understand.
Oh,
okay?
yeah. And some of us
Biden
do.
keeps touting how wages are going up. They're not going up as high as inflation is. Biden keeps touting that inflation's coming down. Inflation's still at least 3 times what it was prior to his administration.
Yeah. Even though it's off the peak, it's still up. Yeah.
Okay.
It's genuine.
Housing prices have literally doubled since he's been in office.
Mhm.
Gas prices have more than doubled since he's been in office.
Mhm.
The price of food has almost tripled since he's been in office.
And I'd like to add that it's going to get worse.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
going to get much worse because the way the government is setting itself up to deal with the avian flu that's coming through, they're going to it's going to coincide with a rise in food costs, and they're going to put it down to public safety. They had to destroy a bunch of the food supply in order to stop the spread of H5N1.
Hey, Dal, who was the first person to tell you about the bird flu?
That was you, actually, from Russia.
And what year?
That was 2002. Ooh, 1
No,
2000.
It was 20 late 2021.
Yeah.
November of
Sorry,
2021.
that's what I meant. Yeah, 2021.
Yep.
Yeah, because we were talking about I think we had both seen the report on it about the Russians that had gotten it. And that's when we started talking about 10%. That's when we first started talking about the 10%, where you go out to the grocery store, you don't hoard, you just go out and buy 10% more than what you usually would and start storing it away.
Yep. And I started pushing that every week from February 2022 going forward, when I predicted that there would be a global food crisis because of Ukraine. This is all predictable, folks. This stuff is literally two years ago. You knew this was going to happen, and they knew this was going to happen. They didn't care. Sad. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about your rights. They don't care about the impact on you. 2 years ago, I was talking about the H5N1 virus.
And we've talked about this before. Okay. The Declaration of Independence states that governments are put into effect by the people. Okay. And I'm paraphrasing this to protect the rights of the citizens.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That is the government's purpose. That is their job, is to protect your rights. This government no longer protects our rights. That is the whole reason why the United States declared its independence, or the colonies declared its independence from England, is because that government was no longer protecting the rights of the colonies.
Yep. True.
Okay. We have a government now that is no longer protecting our rights as individuals, as states, as a country. They are literally transgressing our rights all the way across the board. And folks, guess what? It's supposed to be we the people.
Mm-hmm. Thomas Paine put it best, I think. Thomas Paine said that the Constitution, when it was formed, because the founding fathers were asked, well, who will be king? And they said, let no man be king, but let the Constitution be our king. That was the birth of the rule of law. And the rule, and we the people were to be its enforcers. We were to be loyal to our king, the Constitution.
That's it. Okay. Well, actually, the Constitution is in king. Okay. The sovereign of the United States. Okay. Well, actually, the sovereign of the federal government is the states. Because the states are who actually adopted the Constitution, which in turn formed the federal government.
Right.
But who's the sovereign of the states?
The people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So we are the sovereign over our governance, but yet we fail to exercise that sovereignty. We fail to enforce the rules that our governments are supposed to abide by.
You know why, Mike? Because it's easy. It's easy to forget about the fact that we knew in 2021 that America was going into a recession and that it actually happened. It was easy to forget about the bird flu when we first heard about it in 2021, and then we heard about it again in 2022, and it was only affecting 5 states. It was easy to forget about inflation and the way that it's eating away at our paychecks week after week, month after month, until now. A Happy Meal from McDonald's costs $21 when it used to cost, not that long ago, $5, maybe $7, depending on where you live. Because it's easy to just do what you are told. That, oh, Orange Man bad because CNN said so. Not because there's any fact, not because there's any proof. And when they say, oh my God, Donald Trump is going to take away your Social Security, show me the quote. Show me the single quote that proves that. Matter of fact, he was president. They keep forgetting this. He was president for 4 years. We have a track record. We know exactly what he did and how he ran our country for 4 years. We know this. We have a track record, which they completely disregard when they say he's going to start World War III. You said that last time. It didn't happen. In fact, he made more peace. The world got stabilized. We had the Abraham Accords. They said, oh my God, he's going to destroy the economy. The economy actually improved better than Obama could possibly do. Obama said you couldn't possibly improve the economy, and he did. Everything that we were told, we're being told now, is the same thing we were told in 2019, and we have 4 years of proof that that's all a lie. But we're supposed to believe it because they told you to. And it's hard to pay attention to the details when you could watch the Housewives of Who Gives a Damn or listen to some entertainer, a guy who bounces a ball for a living, or some actor or actress whose job is to pretend for a living. And the most successful of them tend to be people with mental issues, which is why they pretend to be normal. That's why they're so good at it. Or we have people like P. Diddy, who runs around beating women, and it's just because of all of his wealth and his support of Democrats that gets him to be absolved of that. Just like Bill Cosby, just like Epstein, just like Weinstein. It's very upsetting to me. It's easy to just ignore the details and to be accountable, just like we would expect our elected officials to be. But if we're not accountable with ourselves and our votes and our attention, how can we expect politicians to be?
Yeah, expedience and convenience allowed us to divest ourselves of our duty.
Yeah.
Well, and that's literally what Congress has done. Okay, the American people divested itself of its duty. So Congress has done the same and divested itself of its responsibility by setting up all these 3-letter agencies and the bureaucracy that we now are contending with.
And Jefferson actually mentions it. He lays it out for us right in the Declaration of Independence, that people will assume great discomfort, to paraphrase. So it's like discomfort through a long train of abuses. And rather than change the government, they'll just tolerate it until it can no longer be tolerable.
Yeah. And a lot of people are trying to say that we are not in a depression, that we are not headed for another depression.
Hell yes, we are. We're in stagflation.
We are on the verge of another Great Depression. And if you don't believe it, the same elements that were in place prior to the stock market collapse in 1930 are in place today.
Yeah.
Well, today is worse.
Yeah, in a lot of ways it is. It is. Okay. And
we certainly have more to lose.
When it does hit, it is going to be way more devastating than it was in the 30s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also, if you if we would have, okay, the government put things in action that started the cascade of events that did lead to the Great Depression of 1930 or the 30s. And also, government put in place things that actually slowed down our recovery out of the
Mhm.
Depression. However, in a lot of historical references, they claim that government put in things into effect that actually brought us out of the recession, out of the Depression quicker.
Depends on the source you're looking at.
Okay. But if you actually look at it, a lot of the things that were put in place actually it gave more power to the government, at the same time extending the effects of the Depression.
Wasn't that one of the first periods where it was the biggest centralization of federal power?
Yes.
Mhm.
Well, no, that was actually like the third. The first big centralization of federal power was right after the Civil War
Yeah.
and the Reconstruction era. The next big concentration of federal power was right at the beginning of the progressive age in the early 1900s.
So we're talking Teddy Roosevelt, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
The third big concentration of federal power was during the Great Depression. The fourth big concentration of federal power was during the Equal Rights era. I mean the
Civil rights.
or the Civil Rights era.
Yeah.
It's terrifying that we are seeing today that so much of what is happening in our government is being accepted and
Well, we're
forgiven.
going through another concentration of power in our government. We're
I
going
don't
through the fifth stage.
It's not, I don't think it's a concentration of power. I think we are literally seeing America transform into an authoritarian country. No different than the kind of transformation that happened very recently in Venezuela. That Bernie Sanders.
This fifth stage is the final.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the final stage. It is.
Well,
I mean, when you have Lily Tang Williams,
Mhm.
right? Lily Tang Williams bringing up on social media different aspects of the Mao cultural revolution,
Mhm.
and she's contrasting it with what's going on in Washington today, and she's like, "It's happening again. I fled one country to get away from this crap, and you guys are doing it here. Stop."
Mhm.
You might want to listen.
Yeah.
And for those in the chat that don't know who Lily Tang Williams is, she's the one that owned the anti-gunnery debate. Check her out. She's awesome.
Lily, I've done an interview with Lily actually years and years ago. Back, I think it was in 2016. I did when she was running for Congress in Colorado. It was when I first met and talked with Lily. It's Lily with one L, Lily Tang Williams. She's in New Hampshire now, running for Congress, and she was born and raised in China under Mao. Came to the United States and escaped that. She's probably the strongest advocate for the Second Amendment and the Constitution that I have ever met and spoken with. Even more of a Second Amendment advocate than I am. And it is chilling to hear her tell you what she escaped from, what communism and socialism actually are. Doesn't matter what I always hear this from all the colleges. Oh, but it should be fantastic. On paper, it will be wonderful. And then there's the real world. And she lived the real world. I lived a little bit of the real world in Moscow. She lived her life, grew up with her family in communist, Maoist China.
Talk to people fleeing Venezuela.
Yeah, there's most recently Venezuela. Bernie Sanders said he wanted America to be just like Venezuela. Well, Venezuela, in the space of 5 years, went from
being a second world country to a fourth world country.
Well, yes, one of the richest in South America. They have the highest quality of living, and now the people are starving, eating zoo animals and garbage running and disease, mumps and measles, rampant in their country. It's infecting. In fact, the mumps and measles in Venezuela is the reason why there is an increase today of mumps and measles in the United States, why we are now fearing a mumps and measles epidemic in the United States. It comes from, and you can track it back, 2018 was when we first started to see the outbreak in Venezuela. It's that failure. It never ends just all at once. It continues. There's always a consequence. There's a trail. And I can show you the articles. I can show you the videos that I did in 2018 from the CDC telling you that there was a 10,000% increase of measles and mumps in Venezuela that affected all of South America that has now reached the United States.
And of course, whenever you try to get anybody that is supporting or pushing for a socialist, communist type of regime to show where it has actually been successful, where the people that actually went through it did not suffer, they cannot point to one. They always mistakenly try to point to some of the Nordic nations, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, those areas. But those are not socialist countries.
Never were. Never have.
Those are capitalist countries with socialist programs, or social programs, not
social programs that were bankrolled by the capitalism.
Right.
That was the underlying success for their nation.
Right. And if you look at the tax rates in those areas, they are some of the highest tax rates in the world.
Yeah. They have to be.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't be able to
afford. They can fund it all.
Yeah.
Now on the flip side of that, you look at what is happening in Argentina right now, and you can actually see the success of what happens when somebody reverses successfully a socialist type program.
Yeah.
And you're seeing inflation go from 300% to 1%. There are definitive there's definitive evidence that you can look at and you can say, look, this works. But you can't do that with communism.
If you let capitalism actually work without government involvement, capitalism and the market will regulate itself.
More often than not.
But here's the problem with that. In doing that, is people that refuse to participate will end up in poverty, period.
Yeah.
Okay. They will literally take themselves out of the market.
You can't, the government is not there to guarantee your life, which is what we hear that the colleges want. They want the guarantee. They want to want to put the minimum in and get the maximum out guaranteed. That's not what the government is for. If you let capitalism run its course unimpeded by government encroachment, and you allow communities to actually operate as communities, then you will see that people are actually risen up and brought up, because the people that do end up dropping back into poverty, the community generally tends to step up and help take care of those that can't take care of themselves. And the ones that can take care of themselves, they end up giving them the tools in order to be able to take care of themselves.
And their surplus. Like that's the other key, is that the people become very generous when they have enough for themselves. It's like the oxygen mask on the airplane example. Mm-hmm. Like when people are able to breathe and they're able to be successful themselves, they're more than likely going to give up their surplus, which is also talked about by John Locke when he talks about not wasting resources, right? You make enough for yourself to subsist, that's fine, but most often people will produce a surplus. Well, you don't want that surplus to go to waste. That's terrible. Right. So instead what you do is you either barter it away or you help uplift other people.
No. But you misunderstand, guys. You misunderstand. Why do you want to go through all of that effort when you could simply allow the government to do it for you? Like, as an example, we have what's happening in New York. Mayor Eric Adams, the practical progressive of New York City, has now decided that since he is there to protect climate change on your behalf, he is going to ban food. I want to make this clear. He is banning food because of climate change. He wants to micromanage the diet of American citizens in New York City, of everyone in New York, because he is going to protect the climate on your behalf because he decides he has to. This is literally sector partnership to
And
reduce.
you know where this actually came from?
Eats the bugs.
This
Well,
comes from the WEF.
Yeah. This is part of their programs, their Agenda 2030.
That's UN's 2030 agenda,
Um,
but it's WEF's. That's their platform. Period.
they're all connected. They're all the same idea, which is that government is going to micromanage your life. They're going to decide what you get to eat, how you get to eat, how you get to live. And Eric Adams literally is saying he is going to manage your diet, regardless of whether you're fat, you're skinny, you're wealthy, you're poor, whether you're a vegetarian or you eat cheeseburgers every day. It doesn't matter what you do now. He is going to control it for you. And yes, it's very much like you said, Dow, like the promise, and we've heard this before, you're going to eat bugs and you're going to love it because he decided that you deserve bugs. Now, he may eat steak every night, but you are going to eat a bug. He may travel by jets, just like Kathy Hochul takes a jet everywhere she goes. But you get to be stuck in a bus or a subway where you might get stabbed to death. That's just because they have to take care of you because you're not smart enough to deal with this. Even though man-made climate change, there's no evidence of it. None.
No, there
There's
isn't.
a lot of theories,
Okay, and
there's no evidence.
for those of you wondering what I have up here on the screen, I have ice core temps from the last 10,000 years. So, in other words, science has drilled down into the ice caps and gone back what they estimate as 10,000 years. And this is the record that they are showing for global temperatures over that time period. And right here at the end is 2010. And if you look, there's only a few times when we have been lower than most of the rest of the 10,000 years.
Yeah, but you know what I noticed? Look at 1,000 in the year 1,000. Forget about going back that far. In the year 1,000,
Right.
look at the difference in the temperature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right here.
In the year 1,000, there were what? Horses and chariots?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. There were maybe 5 million people in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the temperature
for most
was
of the
warmer.
industrial age, we have been well below.
Yeah,
Okay. And what everybody's trying to point to is this little peak right here. And if you look at the various ice ages, you will see those happening throughout time. Okay.
The planet changes temperature, and we
Now,
can't do a
what I
damn thing
want
about it.
to show you what I'm bringing up next is the global land, air, and sea surface temperature anomalies from 1981 to 2010. Okay. And from the GISS LODI data, which is the red lines, you can actually see that we are actually trending actually on both. Okay. We are trending down and currently are on a downward swing since about 2013. But yet, everybody's going berserk saying that we're losing control, that we're heading,
We never had,
we won't be able to recover.
yeah, but we never had control. The planet, the temperature will change. It always has changed. That's why it's called the weather. It always changes every day. It always has. There's nothing that human beings, we can't predict what the weather is going to be tomorrow. And we can't change the weather because we don't even know how the weather is. We don't know what causes the weather. And here we are, people, Eric Adams, the Democrats in New York State and across this country, because you get the same thing in San Francisco, in LA, in Chicago, in Baltimore, across this country, the Democratic strongholds, they want to make you believe that they have the right in America to micromanage your food, to decide what you eat, when you eat it, and what it will be. That is authoritarian. I don't care. They can say, well, the climate might be, they have no idea. They don't know. Every prediction they have made has been wrong since 1958. That is a fact on the climate. Always been wrong. Everything, all their data has been wrong. It has been proven. It's always a theory. The factual data always proves them incorrect. And here they are coming out and saying, by the way, since we have this theory, we get to control your life. That is insane. That is authoritarian. And the left just wants to avoid that truth.
And here's the deal. And we are seeing this already. As our planets get greener, plants are slowing global warming.
Yeah, because the carbon dioxide is being taken up by the planet.
The earth regulates itself. CO2 goes up, greens go up, plants grow more, which in turn consumes more CO2, which in turn releases more oxygen. The earth balances itself. CO2 goes up, plant life goes up. CO2 goes down, plant life goes down. Okay? Right now, and we've told you these numbers before on these on past episodes. Okay. Current levels of CO2 in the Earth's atmosphere, 0.4%.
Yeah.
Current levels. If the levels of CO2 in the atmosphere reaches 0.2%, plants start dying. Okay.
Yeah.
We're not that far away from 0.2%.
I saw a report from Friends of Science that actually said it's just as likely that we'll go back into a cold snap than we will to have any kind of warming happen. We're somewhere at the end of an ice age. Like we're in what they call a lull of the previous ice age.
Yes.
And so if for some reason the earth fails to regulate itself, it's just as likely that we're going to enter back into an ice age than it would be to be overwarmed.
Typically, before ice ages, we have these periods where we have a rapid rise in temperatures, and then we will enter. It will happen where we will enter an ice age.
They have absolutely no clue. And the part that again, going back to what we see with Eric Adams, with his comments today,
right?
The thing that troubles me more than anything else is that they are using fear, this fear of a potential that they have no proof of, that they have no reliable evidence of, Everything that they have pointed to as evidence since 1958 has been proven to be incorrect. Every theory that they have come up with has been proven incorrect since 1958. This is the fact of the science.
Yeah.
And they're using the fear to be able to literally just steal people's rights and individuality. You no longer have agency. Look at the policies that the left are putting in place. Eric Adams is telling you that he is going to moderate your food in New York City. He's said it. It's not like, oh, this is a secret. He came out and he's happy. He's proud. He thinks this will help people vote Democrat in 2024 and in 2026 when he runs for governor. They think this is a good thing, that they are literally telling you they are going to manage your life because they don't think you're smart enough to do it yourself. And you better do it because fear. No facts, no proof, no evidence that actually is confirmed. Nope, just fear. Do what we say. People should be terrified of this.
Well, when you saw before Eric Adams make his announcement, what were they talking about in the cities? They were talking about food deserts, right? So here's where how they're going to guarantee that you get to eat by controlling and rationing the food.
Mm-hmm.
Government will ration the food so that everyone gets to eat and there will be no more food deserts. Government can do this. Government can't even figure out how to make sure that everybody gets access to proper health care.
No.
Well, they can't even get water to
California just came out with this new law where food-related businesses, i.e. grocery stores, have to give, I think it's a 6-month notice before they can cease operations.
Yes, 6 months. They can't close their business for 6 months until they get another business to replace them.
Right.
And
then government can actually stop them from shutting down their doors, force them to operate at a loss if another business doesn't come in to replace them.
And why do they have to do this? Because the policy in California that they changed that you will not be prosecuted as long as you steal $999 worth of goods under 1,000. As long as you're under 1,000, you can go in and steal from any store and they will not prosecute you. And we have seen hordes of people running through store after store, CVS and all the rest, store after store, ransacking them, in one individual after another, taking less than $1,000, destroying the profitability and destroying those businesses. They closed. And they're like, oh my God, our bad policy hurt the people that we were theoretically supposed to help because they didn't think about the consequences of what they did and the fact that it was just bad law in and of itself. And so now they're going to punish the businesses who were already punished in the first place. And they think that this is going to wind up being a good thing. Like you're going to force people to continue to do business and lose money because you're not smart enough to go and say, oh, by the way, shoplifting, yeah, even if it's under $1,000, you'll still be arrested. You'll still be prosecuted. It's that simple. It's as simple as saying, we got it wrong. The answer is you commit shoplifting, you get arrested, you will be punished. That's the simple, easy answer, but it's not the one that gives them control.
No,
now,
right. Centralization of power and nationalization of business.
Well, and here, okay, what I have up here on the screen, because we did get sidetracked off of the climate change. Climate change is big money.
Mm-hmm.
Huge money. And the biggest reason why Democrats are backing all this quote unquote climate change business is right here up on the screen. Green energy interests boosted Biden and Dems.
Yep.
Okay, and this is for 2020. For the presidential election, the numbers that are in this article are expected to be close to triple, if not more. for the presidential election.
Yeah, that's not a surprise. We've seen that.
Now, on top of that,
Mhm.
okay, of all the green energy money that was in the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure bill, over 60% of that money has gone to foreign-owned countries for green initiatives here in the United States.
Of course they did, because they're trying to promote other countries with your money. It's not a surprise. It's not new. By the way, I know there's no segue to this. I just got a notification. I don't know if others can see this. Google is now notifying me that the live stream is going to be slowed down. I just got a notification from them that they have just targeted, at least they're targeting No Soundbites Allowed. I don't know if they're targeting the Liberty First Foundation. They're targeting this live stream and they're looking to slow it down, that the processing on this video is going to be restricted. This is part of the 35,000 YouTube accounts that were eliminated in 2023, that they are eliminating even more for 2024 because they want to control what is being said. Folks, if you like the First Amendment, like, share, subscribe. It is critical. I am literally real time.
We are going to be looking for other ways of bringing this to you every week. We have been in the process of doing so. Eventually, we want to get this put on our website so that no matter what happens, you will be able to at least watch us live there.
It's troubling to me that I literally now, this is the first time that I have gotten this message. I just got that message as we started this live stream. It is now with me that the video processing is going to be slowed down. This is a problem.
It is. Okay. And they are literally anybody that is talking out about the Biden administration, if they talk about being bringing you facts about climate change, they don't want that. They want the narrative to be the climate is collapsing. They want the narrative to be Democrats are good. You know why Democrats are good for social media companies? Is because they are going to keep in place
propaganda.
No, it's not propaganda. It's Section 2.
Section 230.
Yeah. Which basically makes social media companies exempt from being able to be sued.
No, it isn't basically. It's exactly that. It gives them an immunity clause so that they can control what you say and do, but can't be held accountable.
Right.
Even though what they're doing violates Section 230.
Right. It does. Okay. Because Section 230 is essentially what Section 230 is for, literally, is so platforms can allow the free exchange of information. Okay.
Newspapers.
What's that?
It's so that Google and YouTube can be essentially newspapers, whether it's the main section or even the what do you call that? What do you call that section where everyone has all the ads? Not the op-ed, but the ads. Everyone has ads in them.
Oh, yeah, they're not liable for the ads that they take
Classifieds.
out.
Yeah. It basically means that YouTube and Google, they're just running a classifieds, and you can put whatever you want into that slot of your classified ad. You can,
but
sing songs, whatever. But
when they start regulating that and controlling that, they are no longer a platform.
Right.
They are a content provider, and content providers are not
immune
under Section 230.
Yeah, especially when they make up the rules as they go and change them on a regular basis, like sending, like suddenly just turning around and going, hey, we're going to slow down your live stream just because.
The only liabilities that social media companies have under Section 230 is in relationship to copyrighted material. And with
And
that,
criminal activity.
yes. And with that, they are obligated to use their best efforts to remove copyrighted material or criminal activity. Other than that, they are not supposed to censor or regulate any information that comes through them.
Yeah, their copyright system is crap. Do you know, folks? I did a live stream. This is how screwed up the system is. I did a live stream, which was me talking about the State of the Union. Some company in Pakistan decided that my video, my live stream about the State of the Union was their content. They tried to take the rights for my voice, my image, it's me on a screen talking about the State of the Union with a picture of Joe Biden in the background. And they said, nope, they own the rights to my voice, to my image, and my channel.
Mm-hmm.
And YouTube said, sure.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
And the reason why that they do that is if they are successful in that challenge,
No, they get all my
they
stuff.
get all the ad revenue generated by that content.
Sadly for them, I don't get ad revenue.
Ever.
But they do.
They keep me suppressed. I can't get ad revenue.
Okay. And even if they can only get that ad revenue for a couple, 2-3 days, especially if it's a big page that does have a lot of ad revenue, if they get that for 2-3 days, that's a lot of money.
I understand why
especially if they do it on millions of videos.
Yeah, I understand why they're doing it. I'm upset. I'm not upset with the Pakistani pirates for attempting to take my content. Okay, they recognize my content has value. They recognize a value that Google and YouTube refuse to acknowledge. Mm-hmm. They thought it was going to be popular, so they said, we want a piece of that. Yeah. I get that. My problem isn't that. It's the problem that Google and YouTube said, sure, and gave my rights that they don't. It's my content, my voice, my image. They took my rights and gave it to someone else because they asked for it. At the same time that they tell me that I'm not worth anything. They want to stop us from having super chats or having ads or having advertisers that we prefer. Second Amendment advertisers, they refuse to allow them to advertise with us. But at the same time, when someone else says, oh, but I think that's valuable, they're willing to give it away.
Yeah.
It's meant to be, and they do it like that specifically for channels that are center right because they want to silence you. They want you to be frustrated. They want to take away your money and your ability to get paid. They want to take away your access to the public because they don't want you to exist. And that's the reality.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Hey, hot chicks. So, I mean, it's very upsetting to me. And again, this goes back to, in a way, it's that same mentality that we see from the progressive left. It's that control. They get to choose who's on social media and what message they give. They get to choose what food you will eat, like Eric Adams. They get to choose what kind of education system you get. Kathy Hochul failed. The U.S. Department of Education, the New York State Department of Education failed kids in the Bronx if they don't know what a computer is. But they get to take your money so that they can pump it into the system even more to the same people who failed those kids in the first place. It's not a lack of money. We're spending stupid amounts of money. Over $25,000 per student is spent in New York City for every single one of those rooms. Somewhere around $18,000 per student in New York State. One of the largest numbers in the world per student. We're spending the money. It's not that there isn't enough money. It's that they have failed. They don't care. They want you to be dumb. They want you to be controlled. They want you to obey. And then they're going after the food. They're going after the education. They're going after communication, conversations that you have between you and me. We see that with Sony with the Helldivers too. What did they say? Oh, you have to give Sony access to your private conversations with your friends as you play the game. And Sony, in their own right, can go into any conversation that you may have on your computer. And if they don't like the conversation you're having with your friends privately, they will block you. This is the progressive left. They are only tolerant of those who obey everything, that those who are subservient, and that is antithetical to America. I'm very
It
upset
is.
about this.
I've been listening on Audible to Thomas Sowell.
Great guy.
He's awesome. His book, Black Rednecks and White Liberals. And it talks about, I can't remember the name of the school off the top of my head. I was actually just trying to Google it. A school in New York City that was underfunded. The kids that went to this school were predominantly Black, and they were economically impoverished. Yet it was graduating some of the most highly educated people in the United States. People coming out of this school were able to go into schools like Harvard, Brown, and others. And some of these Ivy League schools were not even requiring that graduates of the school take admissions tests because they were coming out so well prepared and so highly educated.
It's amazing the way that we waste money and the things that we waste money on. You know what? Here, I'll make a deal with Eric Adams, with Kathy Hochul, with the progressive left. You think that we should have more money for education? We need tens of millions of dollars more. Here's a great idea. I will give you that. Let's spend more money on schools, even more than what we've been spending. All you have to do is agree. Where is this? Why is it not coming up? It is not sharing my screen. Do you see it?
I don't know.
There it is. All right.
Yeah, I just put it up. I don't know why yours isn't automatically going up. It should.
YouTube. I'm telling you, I'm swear it's Google messing with it. But here's the deal. We just spent $320 million to build a pier for the terrorist organization Hamas. $320 million for the people who are killing hostages that they have tortured to death, that killed 34 plus Americans on October 7th who were at a concert. $320 million. That is the funding that they're talking about. This is the money that could go to every school in America. They're talking about, oh, black kids don't know how to say don't know what a computer is in America. Joe Biden has said that Black and Latinos don't know how to use the internet. I got an idea. Here's $320 million that you could spend to teach Black and Latinos how to use the internet if you think that's the problem. That you could use this money to teach Black kids in the Bronx what a computer is if you think that's the problem. I guarantee you those aren't problems. But you know what? If we're going to spend the money, I'd rather spend $320 million on that than to give it to the terrorists where they are spending the money. And by the way, this number is increasing because that was just to build a pier for the terrorists. Now we have to maintain that pier. That is being done by Americans right now. We have to keep it in shape and floating and viable. And that's costing us tens of millions of dollars that could be going to for the left. I'm going with their argument. Oh, we need more money for kids in school. Get rid of the pier. Oh, we need more money for the homeless or for LGBTQ or for trans. Get rid of the pier. Stop giving the money to the terrorists. How about that? It took them a month and a half to finally tell us how much money they spent on the terrorists. I don't know how how does it cost $320 million for a temporary pier? Temporary. $320 million. That is ridiculous.
Didn't you know it's $40,000 for a hammer and $50,000 for a toilet seat?
I am on so many levels of pissed off and not understanding this. This is so aggravating to me. This is authoritarianism.
If you wanted to go even further, you could say that $320 million, let's put it in the hands of the parents and then let them find an enterprising group of teachers that are willing to make micro schools. And next thing you know, you're going to have an uptick in the education of the children who are actually going to be edified by being taught in smaller class sizes, funded by parents.
No. The left does not like kids not being in public school. They are against that. You can't do that because they don't get to control the message.
Right. But what I'm saying is if it was really about the kids and you're really worried about education, that would be the way to go. Because then you get the proper results that you say you want. This is why they're hypocrites. This is how we know that they're not genuine. Because they're not actually worried about the kids and their education. They're worried about the message.
That's what they're worried about. They don't care about the kids in Darfur. They don't care about the kids in Haiti. They don't care about the kids in America. They care about controlling power. They want power, which is why they will demonize anyone who does not say what they have approved, that they will try to silence anyone who does not push the propaganda approved message. And that's why it's so important that you like, you share, you subscribe when you see shows like this one, where you just, even if you think, oh my God, I don't agree with Mike's opinion. That's Mike Marshall, me, Dal.
Yeah.
You don't agree with our opinion. That's fine. You know what? Like anywhere, like, share, and subscribe anyway, so that you can tell us why you disagree. Because if you don't, one day they're going to wipe us out. They're going to take us away, and you won't have the choice to be able to say, I don't like it. You're not going to have a choice. They're going to tell you what your opinion is, and they're going to force you to do it. You think I'm kidding? Look at what's happening in Canada. Listen to what Canada is doing. And that is coming to America. The censorship on what you can and cannot say, what words you can use, what they are now going back retroactively into the history of Canadians, and they are punishing them for using words and ideas from 10 years ago. They literally have thought police. They are punishing people for their past when there was no law, when there was no problem, and now they're punishing them modern day. That's coming to America.
Yeah. Ex post facto laws, and they are actually doing that. In fact, They did literally just did it to Trump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
They're doing it to a lot of people.
E.G. Kelly trial.
Oh yeah, the E. Jean Carroll trial. Yeah.
Yeah. That was literally an ex post facto law, because they had to literally rewrite the law in order for her to bring suit against Trump that he was actually finally, quote unquote, found guilty of.
Well, no, he wasn't, but
Yeah.
they don't care. They just,
They don't.
all of the trials, again, as we said earlier, all the trials, they're just political campaign. It's just negative campaigning. It has nothing to do with the law. It has nothing to do with whether or not he's guilty. It's just Orange Man bad. It is a political propaganda campaign. Oh, see, Orange Man bad. We told you, Orange Man bad. Orange Man bad. Don't vote for Orange Man bad. And it's not working.
As far as I understand it, with the case with E. Jean Carroll and also with Alex Jones, because they did it first with him, they rendered a summary judgment. So they didn't even go to trial. There was a grand jury to start the allegations, and then once it made the court, there was a sympathetic judge. The judge rendered a summary judgment in absence of a jury, which established his guilt by the judge. And then what we saw of the Eugene Carroll trial was actually the damages awards.
It was a kangaroo court.
Yeah, there wasn't even a discovery, really. It was just, okay, I, the judge, have determined by summary judgment that you're guilty. So now we're going to go ahead and have a trial to show how much you need to pay in order to award damages to this plaintiff.
Alex Jones was different than that. That wasn't what happened with Alex Jones. But it's very similar to what we did see with Colorado when they tried to take Trump off the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
They just made it up. Oh,
well, with Alex
on the ballot.
Right. Well, with Alex Jones, what it was also a summary judgment of guilt, but the guilt they used to establish for him, the judgment that was rendered for him was that he did not deliver all of the documentation that the court was asking for, that the judge demanded. And when he didn't produce the documentation they said he needed to produce, they rendered a summary judgment. But if you go back through the trial, you realize he gave all of the documents that he had. He did not withhold anything as far as his legal team is concerned. They said they gave everything. In fact, you look at the paper trail, they gave everything.
Yeah.
But the judge was like, no, this can't be everything. There's got to be more. You got to go back and you got to find more. And he rendered the summary judgment.
Yeah.
In the absence of that. So they were trying to force Alex Jones to prove his innocence, which is in essence what they were doing with the Eugene Carroll case. They were trying to force Trump to prove his innocence as opposed to being presumed innocent.
Well, isn't that what we saw Nancy Pelosi say? That
exactly.
She literally said Trump has to prove his innocence. No one has to prove their innocence. It's the United States. We aren't that country. We are the only country. You don't have to prove your innocence. You have to prove my guilt.
Right.
That's the whole point. Prove my guilt. And they are slowly but steadily changing that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's terrifying. Again, that's part of the move towards authoritarianism that we are seeing. And many of the things we've talked about today are all, as we shift further and further left under this progressive ideology, we become more and more authoritarian. Why? Because if you go further left, you eventually run into fascism. The further left you go, you stop being progressive and you become fascist.
You do. Okay.
Holy crap.
Fascism and socialism are literally two branches of the same tree.
What were you going to say, Del?
I just saw this thing, and it's not really what we were talking about, but in Taiwan, one of the guys in the Taiwanese Congress just stole a bill and ran out of the room. He just so it couldn't be voted on. He just started going desk to desk, and he grabbed up all the bills and then ran out of the room.
That's not that far or that different than what Jamal Bowman did. Progressive Representative Jamal Bowman of New York. What did he do? He pulled the fire alarm. Same concept. What did the Democrats in Texas do when they had this was 2 years ago, when they had a bill that they were going to lose? All the Democrats in the Texas legislature left the state. They flew to DC. So it's the same concept.
Mhm.
So they're all doing the same thing. This guy stole the bill. They're doing the same thing here in the United States.
Yeah.
They just call it something different. It just looks different. It's not one guy running through a room. Instead, it's all the Democrats taking selfies on a private jet as they run from Texas to Washington, D.C. to avoid doing their job because they're going to lose a vote. It's the same thing that we see in so many of these cases. It's just they do it in a way that
look at him.
Yeah. Well, at least he's got balls. I'll give him this.
Yeah.
He's got balls. At least he's standing up for something and everyone can see it.
Yeah.
But when you see what the Democrats are doing now, I mean, literally, when they run away from a state and they say, oh, we're just not going to vote because it's unfair. No, your job is to vote, period. It's not to only pass the laws you like. It's to vote. And you ran away from your job. Oh, you're avoiding. That's the same thing. They're being cowards. That guy, at least in Taiwan, is being at least bold enough to show his face.
We've kind of been talking about how when government gets involved in various things, how it actually screws things up, right?
Always.
And I was telling you about how I was listening to this book by Thomas Sowell, Black Rednecks and White Liberals. Okay, and in that book, I told you I was trying to find what high school he was talking about. Dunbar High School, which is actually, I was wrong. It's not in New York City. It's actually in Washington, D.C. Dunbar High School was putting out students of such a high caliber educationally wise that many Ivy League schools were not requiring students from this school to take admission tests in order for them to attend. The very first woman to receive a college degree was Mary Jane Patterson, and she was a graduate of Dunbar High School. She attended Oberlin College. Oberlin College was one of the ones that you would not have to take a admissions test for in order to in order to be enrolled. From that school, there were multiple black senators that came, or black politicians, senators, representatives that graduated from that school. Multiple blacks that led other industries, multiple blacks that went on to military careers, including at least one brigadier general. Now, mind you, this is prior to the Civil Rights Law of 1964. Okay. Up until that time, the teachers were refusing to retire because they were getting such fulfillment from these students and so forth. This is also before Brown v. Board of Education. The school was drastically underfunded, and the children that were attending this school typically were from households that were living in poverty. Okay, it was a predominantly black school. In fact, it was literally a segregated school when segregation was allowed, and it was graduating some of the best students anywhere in the nation. And then government gets involved with Brown v. Board of Education and the Civil Rights Law of 1964. And once that happened, all of a sudden, Dunbar High School started going backwards and started going like many of the other schools across the nation, where once government got involved, the educational standards started failing.
Yeah. The education system's screwed.
Mm-hmm. Well, another one is PS 91 in New York City. Okay.
Don't know that one.
Or actually, no, it was CS 91.
If it's in New York City,
it
would be PS. If it's in New York City, it's PS.
No, they used to have what was called colored schools, which was CS.
Well, that's before my time.
Okay. It was also another one that was predominantly black and was actually graduating students of such a high caliber that many of them were able to attend Ivy League schools, and also were able to, if they had taken admissions tests, were passing them with honors.
Nah, that's a long time ago. And look at what we have now.
That's exactly what I'm trying to get at. Okay. Is when we actually allow people that are actually truly invested in education to teach, and to teach people how to learn, we get exemplary schools like Dunbar, like PS 91 or CS 91, and others. Tuskegee Institute is another one.
Howard, and there's a few of them, but the key is get government out. Exactly. The more that government micromanages your life, and you're pointing out certain examples here in education, but it's true in everything that we do. The more that you get government out of your life, the better your life, the quality of your life, and the experience that you will have, and the freedom that you will have. It's always diminished by having more government and micromanaging. And, screw Eric Adams. I don't care what he thinks is good for what might be good for an environment he can't predict. He's not going to take away my steak. He's not going to decide what I'm going to buy for lunch tomorrow. It's just not going to happen. I'm an American. Never, not over my dead body. No.
We actually touched on this a little bit last week, but we didn't actually. We failed to point it out. The video that I played last week of the two cops talking to the FFL about the force retention triggers.
Mm-hmm.
How
Good
did
episode,
they
by the way.
know that he supposedly bought those triggers?
Yeah, the sales database.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the ATF is collecting data on you every time you purchase fire. Every time, even though they're not supposed to, but every time that, what is it?
4473.
Yeah, 4473 form is filled out. The ATF notes it.
Yeah. Well, what Representative Gaston here is saying in this particular clip is that he's berating his Republican colleagues because of particular laws that forbid the ATF from going directly to sources in order to get information. They have to go dredge through these databases, these sales databases, in order to glean personal information of firearm owners. And this is part of the micromanaging. This is the government wanting to know what you are doing in every aspect of your life. They want to
Well,
know what you buy, when you buy it, and what you're going to do with it, and
the
what they tell you
ATF
you're allowed to do with it.
the ATF has literally said that they do have a gun registry. And
Yeah.
the way they've been able to put together this gun registry is every time they shut down a gun store, they take over all those 4473 forms that the gun store is required to keep on file.
Right.
Okay. That's why there's been such a big push to, number one, require people to get FFLs every time they decide to sell a gun, even if it's a private exchange. And number two, to come down so hard on various FFL gun stores, so that they can shut them down, so they can get those 4473 forms.
Yeah. It's utterly ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. And it's
Highly
totally
unconstitutional.
illegal, and is against the ATF's commission or whatever charter.
And so people don't miss the idea either. We are empowered as the people that if we see a law that is blatantly unconstitutional, we need to challenge it.
Mm-hmm.
We have the duty and the obligation to enforce the Constitution on our government. The Constitution is the progenitor of government. It is not the result of government.
But here's the thing. Freedom requires sacrifice.
Correct.
Okay. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. And if we are going to do this, if we are going to enforce the Constitution on our government, it is going to require sacrifice.
You're muted, Mike. I think you muted it for the outside noises.
Yeah, I did. It's because we have to give up the comfort of someone else telling us, "I'll take care of it." Don't think about it.
How ridiculous is it though that we decided as a people culturally over many years to give away our duty, or to divest ourselves of the duty to enforce the Constitution, and hand over that authority to the very government that the Constitution created to enforce itself. How ridiculous is that?
But that's because you've read the Constitution. If you don't read the Constitution, if you don't know what it's there for, if no one ever tells you, and all they tell you is government will take care of it, then you believe government will take care of it, that government does that. It's the same thing like they tell kids all the time. Well, Second Amendment's about hunting and recreation. No, it's not. It's not. They never once will show those kids, those very same kids they are teaching that to, have never read the Second Amendment, have never seen the Second Amendment, and they never point out that line. Like, here it is in the Constitution, the Second Amendment, any of the amendments in the Declaration of Independence. There's no document that says what they are claiming, which is why they won't show them any of those documents. They just say it.
90% plus of Americans believe the president can make laws.
What? Where do you get that from?
Yeah. Executive orders. Executive orders. They treat executive orders like law.
Well, they're not. And he can't. In case anyone's thinking, no, they can't. In fact, they are explicitly prevented from doing that.
They are. Okay.
Explicitly. It's like,
ask anybody, Republican or Democrat.
I run in a bunch of political junkie circles. Okay. So like left, right, wherever. Everybody I know is pretty well informed politically. So I don't know a lot of people who aren't. I think they get intimidated sometimes. Don't know why. So I don't know anyone who would actually agree with that. That's
how many Republicans do you know that are saying, just wait till Trump gets into office, he'll change those laws?
Yeah. Yeah, that
I know.
people that are politically ignorant, that I'll give you, are probably not in your circle, Mike, because you're like a
No.
fuzzy Wolverine. You're like- yeah,
Yeah.
they hinge their entire instead of hinging on the ideals of the Constitution, they hinge their
The vast
faith
majority of Americans
and belief
believe
on
the
a
president
single
can
person,
make laws.
right? And they're saying
They
they're
don't
saying, you know,
understand that legislation is done in Congress.
yeah, the God King will come and he will make sure he will deliver us. It's like the Messiah treatment. We'll have our Messiah, he'll be back in office, and then he'll be able to fix all this.
No, he's not.
But
He's not.
that's what you're up against. Like when you talk
People are going
on
to be
Sundays,
so damn disappointed. Trump's going to win. Yes. Is he going to change? Is the economy going to change overnight? No, it will not. And we're still going to be in a recession, and we're still going to have a global food crisis in the at least first year, possibly first 2 years
And
of
the
a
biggest
Trump
thing
administration.
is he going to get a Congress that's going to help him, or is he going to get a Congress that's going to hurt him?
Well, that's why I said the first 2 years of his presidency are definitely going to be continuations of a recession and a global food crisis, which are somewhat. And so that's.
But that's what you're up against, is that the average person that is not like we are, right?
The
Attentive.
average person doesn't
The average-
understand.
They're
that
going to see if the Congress is the key. So if Trump gets into office, people are believing that he'll be able to rewrite the laws through executive order, which doesn't happen. We know that. We know that.
No.
But if he were able to get a Congress that works with him, people would see that as Trump being effective. They wouldn't attribute it to the success of Congress. They would attribute the success to Trump, just like they attribute the success of Biden to Biden instead of to
and they
Congress.
attribute the failure to Biden when actually it's been stuff that's been put through Congress.
Well, I understand there's the failure of policy, i.e., Afghanistan. That's failure of policy, which has ramifications, which leads to Ukraine, Hamas, so forth. That's policy. I get that. But I wouldn't blame the part of the policy of the Bidenomics has failed. The laws specifically are what have enabled the recession we are in to continue to grow and be extended.
Right. And most people do not
There's a
understand
difference.
that.
No, they attribute that failure to Biden exclusively. So if Biden leaves, then everything gets better.
No,
that's the belief.
No, not. Oh God, no. Oh, absolutely no.
Which is why Larry Sharpe is harping so much about the Libertarian Party, because he's trying to get the message out that there is a better way to do business and fix the country, and he believes that the Libertarians are the ones to do it. Now, I'm a very independently minded person, but I think Larry is wrong, because the Libertarians cannot seem to get the message down because they've wandered away from Liberty First principles. They've become a party rather than for Liberty First.
Well, I would not call them a party. I've said this publicly. I've said it to Larry myself. Larry's a friend. He's a friend of the channel. He's a friend. He's a personal friend of mine.
Larry's a great guy and very smart.
Well, I know him personally. I have dinner with him on a regular basis. I know the man for 10 years now.
And he does have good ideas.
Yeah. And some of his ideas are good ideas. Sometimes I vehemently disagree with him. I understand. So I understand what you're saying, Dal. And again, it's the same expectation that, well, libertarians will fix everything. No, they won't. No, we could vote in everyone libertarian and it's still not going to fix everything.
Because the fix then is still lies with the government, not with the people.
Exactly. There's my which brings us back to accountability.
We have to fix it.
Right. And
right.
That's
it's
why
not who we vote in. It's not any of that. Okay. It's us holding who we vote in accountable.
Right.
That's my point. That's
And where government falls short, we should be doing like what the state governments are doing when the federal government falls short.
And people don't understand that, even though we harp every week
Mhm.
on this.
Yeah.
We do. We go over and over and over on it every week.
But we have to.
People do not understand it. And the
Sometimes
only way they're going to understand it is by the people in our audience helping us spread that message by liking, sharing, commenting, and helping us get this word out. That's the only way.
And being part of
We
the
can change
conversation,
Yes.
not just a
Yes.
passive listener. I was at work the other day. Just a quick anecdote. So I was at work this week,
Mhm.
and I had 4 people around me, and they started talking economy and politics, and they were talking about Trump and Biden and everything. And I said, the funny thing is that you guys are talking about who's going to be the next executive officer, but we're not talking about liberty first principles. And they just kind of looked at me like I had 3 heads. And I said, all right, do you not know what liberty first principles are? And they're like, no. Well, what is this? And I said, it's our Constitution. Let me tell you, do you have time to sit down and listen to me talk about our savior and the Constitution? It sounded like one of these evangelists. And so, I'm talking with these people, and then all of a sudden I look over and one of my coworkers puts in an earplug. I was like, he's a Democrat.
No, and that's you're exactly right. People, number one, people will tune you out.
Yeah.
Well, it takes
Okay.
work. You're
Right.
asking them to do work.
Yeah,
And I
think
don't
about
care
it.
what side of the aisle they're on, they will tune you out.
But I can tell you that there were at least 3
Because-
people that left work that day that were like, you know what? I need to go look at this.
Mhm.
So it's important when you talk to people, you just focus on 1 or 2 issues that you get really well versed in, and people will recognize that you know what you're talking about, and then they start sharing, and then more people start looking, and then eventually your voice grows into many voices, and then you can affect change
Right.
as the people.
No, we should address one thing that a lot of people think. They point or they will see me or Mike or Frank or Dow. They'll hear us and they'll say, I can't know all those different issues. I've been doing this 18 years and I
Takes
spend
work.
8 to 12 hours, sometimes 16 hours a day doing this politics. And when I've had jobs and then, I get off of work, I'm doing politics. At lunch, I'm doing politics. I wake up, I do politics. That's not your life. I've been
No.
18 years. Tomorrow, I go to sleep tonight. I got to do some work after this, and then I go to sleep tonight. I'll get 3-4 hours of sleep when I get up, and then I have to go to an event tomorrow in the Bronx, and then on the 23rd, I'm going to an event. Then on the 24th, I'm going to DC. You're not supposed to do that. No one expects an average person to do that. Pick
No, absolutely
one
not.
thing. Just pick one thing that is important to you
Mm-hmm.
and follow that thing, whatever it is that moves and motivates you, that you care about. Minimum wage, abortion, gun rights, education, homelessness, you name it. It's your thing. Follow that one thing. Spend an hour a day learning about that one thing that's important to you and making
Right.
sure that whoever you have as your representative, that they are aware this is your thing, that it's important. Then go from there. 18 years from now, you might be like me, or you may not, but start with just that. That's how you start.
Regardless of which item you pick, whatever political item you pick, spend time learning the
Mhm.
Constitution.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Learn it forwards, backwards, sideways, upside down. Because that is how our government is supposed to operate. It's not how our government operates today. It's how it is supposed to operate. And until we actually, as a nation, as individuals, know that important document, which defines our government, we will not know how to control our government.
And for people that want to fight for minorities, the people that believe that they're going to, somehow champion the cause of people that are disadvantaged in their minds.
Oh God.
Just remember this: there is no greater minority than you. You are only one person. You are the most minority of minorities. So whatever matters to you, that you're your only advocate for that. There's nobody else that's going to come to your aid to give you that advocacy. You are your own advocate. So if you want to help a minority, help yourself.
And for those of you that may be listening to this, that are thinking that the Constitution is rooted in racism,
No.
okay, some of the leading Black apologists in the past, not today, in the past, were huge supporters of the Constitution, including Martin Luther King Jr., including Booker T. Washington.
Frederick Douglass.
Yep.
But
And
that's because
many others.
And that's because they saw the value of the founders' ideals. Just because they didn't have immediate abolition of slavery, which is something that most detractors will point at. They'll be like, well, they didn't immediately abolish slavery when they founded the Constitution and give rights to everybody. Well, that's because the culture at the time, they knew that if they tried to do that, there would be no United States. There wouldn't be anything.
It
South
would
would not
have been
agree.
a split republic at that time.
The South would never have agreed to a constitution unless they went with the 3/5 clause, which is why it exists.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They tried. They had the argument. They made the argument. Again, people don't know. There is that argument. It was discussed. There's reasons why it was done the way it was done. It's all in writing.
You'll find it in the supporting documents.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there was a big push to not allow slaves to have any representation.
Yeah.
And the South literally forced it. They were wanting slaves to be counted as whole, okay, as 1-to-1,
yeah,
instead of 3/5. The North got them down to 3/5 because if it would have been 1-to-1, the South would have dominated the nation for a lot longer than it did.
It was about politics. It was a political compromise.
And just so everyone's clear, the Democrats were the ones that were fighting for 1-to-1,
Mm-hmm.
right?
They were pro-slavery, yes.
And
well,
what are they
the
doing
party
now?
that became the Democrats.
Yeah, and what are they doing now with criminal aliens?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing.
Same thing. So criminal aliens are going to be what? The next 3/5 clause?
Yep.
I mean,
yes, yeah.
This is old news, but it's repeating itself because we have grown lax as a people, as a culture, in knowing what it is that created our nation. This is why it's so critical for everyone to know, if you're an American and you love America, then you got to know the Constitution. You got to know the Federalist Papers, know the Anti-Federalist Papers. And these supporting documents, the Constitution, they're not hard to read. They're written in simple script because the whole premise of government by the people is that even the lowest common denominator of your population should be able to understand their rights and how the government was supposed to protect them.
Look at all the original laws. They were like one page, and usually not even.
If only.
That's it.
If only we were still one page.
Well, yeah, we could be. It was never meant to be 2,000, 5,000 pages long, requiring 3 days, 2 lawyers, and a couple of personal aides reading through a bill so that you could figure out what it actually means and does. That's not, if it takes that many people and that much subterfuge and legal, and if you're using legalese, that's subterfuge. If it has all of that in there, it's not good. If you can't
Right.
explain the core of what you're doing in one page, then you have failed. You have failed. It is not that hard. I wrote a bill.
It was
I
the
pushed
election
up.
bill, right?
There was a couple of them. I wrote an election reform bill.
That
2
was a good
pages.
one. I am so upset with my representatives that never took off.
No, they don't want to change the election
No, they're not going to.
laws. But it took 2 pages. It's 2 pages, covers the entire thing. I wrote a bill, what I call the CAP Act, which was to punish and restrict any member of Congress from taking bribes. And what happens, limiting their income, their pay, and preventing them from anti-bribery. 2 pages. That's it. It doesn't have to be 15,000 pages. It just has to say, and this is typing. The only reason why it's 2 pages in both of those cases, because it's typewritten two spaces. Double space. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. If you put it
Double
single
space,
spacing, it'd be
and
1
each
page,
line
1
has
and a
to
half.
be numbered on the right side.
Yeah,
I mean, on the left side. Because I wrote bills for the state of Washington. When I-1639 went through. Okay, basically creating safe counties that were not going to enforce I-1639. So we have, and anybody can write a bill.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter who you are. And
We
you
are
can
one of the.
submit it.
I think we are one of the few, if not the only country, where a regular, average citizen can write legislation to be introduced into Congress or
And if you
state
think the
legislature.
only ones that are writing legislation are the people in Congress and the Senate or in your state legislatures,
They're not writing a damn thing.
None of them have wrote a bill. They've
No.
sponsored bills that were written by somebody else.
Lobbyists, a lot of lobbyists.
Always the lobbyists. It's never them.
And if anybody ever comes to you and says, well, complication is the sign of civilized government, they're lying to you. The simpler a government is, the better it runs, the more efficient it is.
The more civilized it is.
Right. The more complicated something is.
Understand their role.
Right. The more complicated something is, the more likely it is to be abused or corrupted.
Okay. Well, that being said, we have passed the 2.5 hour mark.
Yes.
So we're going to go ahead and wrap that up.
We're on fire.
Folks, get involved. One of the ways that you can get involved is by joining the Liberty First Foundation. Okay. You can find us at l1f.us and through there, through the Join Now link, you can actually find our membership drive promotion. Here, you can actually become a paid member of the Liberty First Foundation. Now, we are not just pocketing your money when you become a member. We put that money to use. We put that money in websites and material, etc., so that we can actually, we actually don't take any of that money that we get from memberships. We put it to work in order to help us spread the message about Liberty First. We must get this country back to its foundational roots. The only way we can do it is through organizations like the Liberty First Foundation and many other pro-constitutional organizations that are out there. So please, please, please get involved. Help us spread this message of liberty. And I'm not talking just liberty for conservatives. I'm talking about liberty for the American people. That's what this country was based upon. That's our foundation. Help us restore it back to its proper foundation. Thank you, everybody. We are here every Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We hope to see you here again next week. We'll see you then. Thanks, everyone.